The authenticity of Clarendon's History, though printed with the sanction of one of the first universities of the world, had not an unexpected manuscript been happily discovered, would, with the help of factious credulity, have been brought into question by the two lowest of all human beings, a scribbler for a party, and a commissioner of excise. The persons to whom he alludes were Mr. John Oldmixon and George Ducat, Esquire. Talking to me upon this subject when we were at Ashbourne in 1777, he mentioned a still stronger instance of the predominance of his private feelings in the composition of this work, than any now to be found in it. "You know, sir, Lord Gower forsook the old Jacobite interest. When I came to the word renegado, after telling that it meant one who deserts to the enemy, a revolter, I added, sometimes we say a Gower. Thus it went to the press, but the printer had more wit than I, and struck it out." Let it however be remembered that this indulgence does not display itself only in sarcasm toward others, but sometimes in playful allusion to the notions commonly entertained of his own laborious task. Thus Grub Street, the name of a street in London, much inhabited by writers of small histories, dictionaries, and temporary poems, whence any mean production is called Grub Street; lexicographer, a writer of dictionaries, a harmless drudge. At the time when he was concluding his very eloquent preface, Johnson's mind appears to have been in such a state of depression that we cannot contemplate without wonder the vigorous and splendid thoughts which so highly distinguished that performance. "I," says he, "may surely be contented without the praise of perfection, which if I could obtain in this gloom of solitude, what would it avail me? I have protracted my work till most of those whom I wished to please have sunk into the grave, and success and miscarriage are empty sounds. I therefore dismiss it with frigid tranquillity, having little to fear or hope from censure or from praise." That this indifference was rather temporary than an habitual feeling, appears, I think, from his letters to Mr. Warton; and however he may have been affected for the moment, certain it is that the honours which his great work procured him, both at home and abroad, were very grateful to him. His friend the Earl of Cork and Orrery, being at Florence, presented it to the Accademia della Crusca. The Academy sent Johnson their Vocabulario, and the French Academy sent him their Dictionnaire, which Mr. Langton had the pleasure to convey to him. It must undoubtedly seem strange, that the conclusion of his preface should be expressed in terms so desponding, when it is considered that the author was then only in his 46th year. But we must ascribe its gloom to that miserable dejection of spirits to which he was constitutionally subject, and which was aggravated by the death of his wife 2 years before. I have heard it ingeniously observed by a lady of rank and elegance, that his melancholy was then at its meridian. It pleased God to grant him almost 30 years of life after this time, and once, when he was in a placid frame of mind, he was obliged to own to me that he had enjoyed happier days, and had many more friends, since that gloomy hour than before. It is a sad saying, that most of those whom he wished to please had sunk into the grave, and his case at 45 was singularly unhappy, unless the circle of his friends was very narrow. I have often thought, that as longevity is generally desired, and I believe generally expected, it would be wise to be continually adding to the number of our friends, that the loss of some may be supplied by others. Friendship, the wine of life, should, like a well-stocked cellar, be thus continually renewed; and it is consolatory to think that although we can seldom add what will equal the generous first growths of our youth, yet friendship becomes insensibly old in much less time than is commonly imagined, and not many years are required to make it very mellow and pleasant. Warmth will, no doubt, make a considerable difference. Men of affectionate temper and bright fancy will coalesce a great deal sooner than those who are cold and dull. Section 20.